My child, I see how incredibly tired you are. I see the quiet, heavy exhaustion that settles deep within your bones, long before the sun even begins to set. You are carrying an invisible, crushing weight, dragging it behind you from the exact moment you wake up in the morning until you finally close your eyes in the dark. It is a terrible, suffocating burden, stitched together by shame, guilt, and the relentless, echoing memories of your past mistakes. You have been carrying this load for so many difficult seasons that your shoulders have grown completely accustomed to the constant dull ache. You walk through your daily life honestly, believing that you must hold on to this pain, convinced that if you ever dare to set it down, you are somehow failing to take responsibility for your history. You treat your guilt like a loyal, demanding companion, dragging it into every new room you enter, allowing it to dictate how you view yourself and how you mistakenly believe I view you. I see the nights you lie awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying conversations and choices, wishing you could turn back the hands of time. I see how you wake up feeling already defeated before your feet even touch the floor. But I am speaking directly to your heart right now to tell you that this massive burden was never meant for your shoulders. I am inviting you to stop. Just stop. Stop running. Stop pretending. And stop punishing yourself. Breathe, my child. Let your heart slow its frantic beating. Let the rigid tension drop from your shoulders. Hear my voice, gently cutting through the loud, chaotic noise of your regrets. And listen to the absolute truth of who you really are. I want you to know that you are completely seen right now, in this exact moment, and you are entirely safe here with me. There is absolutely no judgment waiting for you here. None. I have watched you wear brave, carefully constructed faces for the rest of the world. I have seen you force a warm smile when your spirit felt shattered underneath, trying to hold all the fragile pieces together so no one would notice your pain. I know about the quiet tears you cry when the house is empty, when the daily distractions fade away, and the silence suddenly becomes entirely too loud to bear. You hide your deepest struggles because you are profoundly afraid that if people truly knew the depth of your regrets, they would turn around and walk away from you. You have spent years walking through crowded rooms, yet feeling entirely alone, trapped inside a dark prison of your own making. You have lived in fear of being discovered, dreading the moment someone might look too closely. But I see straight through the thick walls you have built. I do not look at you through the distorted lens of your worst mistakes or your darkest days. I look at you, and I see the beautiful, fragile, incredibly precious child that I carefully created. You do not ever need to hide your face from me. You never have to shrink back into the shadows in fear when you hear my voice calling your name. I am not here to condemn you. I am here to rescue you from the condemnation you have relentlessly forced upon yourself. Take off the heavy mask you have been wearing. You are safe in my presence. Listen to me very carefully, and let these words sink into the very center of your being. The forgiveness you are so desperately striving to earn has already been granted to you. It is finished. It is done. The slate has been wiped completely clean. You have spent so much of your precious time looking up at the sky, imagining that I am standing over you with crossed arms, a stern face, and a heart full of endless disappointment. You have painted a vivid, terrifying picture of a harsh, unyielding judge, waiting impatiently for you to fail yet again, just so I can remind you of how far you have fallen short of perfection. That is a lie. That is a heavy, suffocating, devastating lie, designed by the enemy to keep you living in the cold shadows of despair. I am not standing over you with a thick ledger aggressively tallying up your daily faults and calculating exactly what you owe me. I am standing right in front of you, with my arms thrown wide open, waiting for you to simply collapse into my grace. I do not want your endless repeating apologies or your frantic promises to be absolutely perfect starting tomorrow. I do not need you to clean yourself up before you approach me. I just want you. I want you to fall into my embrace completely exhausted from the fight and finally realize that you do not have to fight this bitter battle alone anymore. The exhausting war you are waging against yourself is over if you will only let it be. My forgiveness is not a reward for good behavior. It is a free gift born out of my boundless compassion for you. You have already been pardoned, my child. The prison door is wide open, and you are free to walk out into the light. You cannot outrun my mercy. I want that absolute, unshakable truth to saturate the weary, dry soil of your soul today. There is no physical distance you could ever travel, no mistake you could ever make, and no valley so dark or so deep that my loving hand cannot reach down and pull you safely out. You have honestly believed that you wandered far too far this time, that you finally crossed an invisible permanent line, where my grace simply runs out and my patience expires. But my love for you is not a fragile, delicate string that snaps when it is pulled too tightly by your human imperfections. It is a vast, bottomless ocean, and it forcefully, beautifully swallows up every regret, every failure, and every misstep you could ever bring to the sandy shore. When my waves of grace wash over your life, they completely erase the footprints of your past, leaving behind a smooth, untainted surface. I know the deep-seated loneliness that has taken permanent root in your heart. The painful, isolating conviction that you are somehow fundamentally flawed and entirely disqualified from experiencing pure, unconditional love. That deep, spiritual loneliness ends right here. I am stepping into that empty, echoing space beside you. I am wrapping my glorious, peaceful presence around you like a heavy, warm blanket on a freezing winter night. I want you to feel the icy grip of fear begin to melt away, slowly replaced by the profound, settling, unshakable comfort of knowing you belong to me completely and forever. You are not an orphan wandering through the wilderness alone. You are a cherished member of my family, and there is a seat prepared just for you at my table. I know you have been praying intensely for your life to change. I know you have been desperately looking for a massive breakthrough, pleading with tears for the difficult circumstances around you to suddenly shift. You want the violent storms to stop, the heavy doors to finally open, and the exhausting earthly struggles to fade away into a distant memory. I hear every single one of those desperate prayers, and I'm already working in the unseen spaces of your life. But I need you to understand something absolutely crucial. Before I change your external circumstances, I must first quiet your troubled mind. My peace comes before my miracle. If I simply handed you the breakthrough while your heart was still deeply tangled in shame and fear, you would not be able to fully receive it. You would still feel completely unworthy. You would still sit nervously in the dark, waiting anxiously for the other shoe to drop, convinced that your past would eventually catch up and steal your joy. So right now, in this quiet, sacred moment, I am doing the deep, necessary foundational work within your tired soul. I am gently calming the crashing waters of your anxiety. I am silencing the harsh critics that live loudly inside your head. Before we can step into the beautiful future I have meticulously prepared for you, we must first address this exhausting, endless cycle of self-punishment you are trapped within and gently dismantle the secret, painful belief that you must somehow pay me back for your past. I watch you carry this secret heavy ledger in your mind, meticulously tracking every single time you fall short, every fleeting moment of impatience, every careless word spoken in anger, and every quiet promise you could not manage to keep. You treat your own soul with such relentless, unyielding severity. When you stumble, you immediately step into the cold, sterile role of your own harshest judge. You quickly take the gavel into your own hands and hand down a strict sentence of emotional solitary confinement, isolating yourself from my presence because you feel unworthy to approach me. You have somehow convinced your weary heart that if you just suffer a little longer in the dark, if you just withhold grace and joy from your own life, or if you can simply manage to be absolutely flawless, for a few consecutive weeks, you might finally tip the celestial scales back in your favor. You honestly believe that your emotional pain is the required currency to purchase my affection. You think that your lingering sadness is the undeniable proof of your repentance. But my child, looking at your tear-stained face, your exhausted eyes, and your rigid, weary posture, I must tell you how deeply this transactional view of my love breaks my own heart. You are treating my beautiful, boundless grace as if it were a high-interest loan, a massive, crushing debt that you must desperately work to pay off through your suffering, your endless apologies, and your exhausting, impossible pursuit of perfectionism. This is the tragic, exhausting illusion that is keeping you so tightly bound in anxiety. You are desperately trying to buy something that was already purchased for you at the highest possible price. I want to completely and permanently destroy this false belief right now, in this quiet moment between us. My mercy is a free gift. It is entirely unmerited, wildly overflowing, and completely incapable of being earned by human hands. You cannot work your way into my good graces through sheer willpower, because you are already held safely and securely within them. Your constant frantic striving does not make you more righteous in my eyes. It only makes you more depleted, more anxious, and more prone to despair. When you insist on paying me back for your past mistakes, you are unknowingly telling me that my love is conditional, that my grace is somehow insufficient, without your added suffering to make up the difference. I see the profound, emotional pain of this endless doubt. I see how you constantly wonder if you have done enough to balance the scales, always terrified that one wrong move will erase your progress. Do you see how this stubborn lack of self-forgiveness is creating a painful, entirely unnecessary barrier between us? You are standing right at the edge of the beautiful, quiet, sunlit pastures I have carefully prepared for you, yet you refuse to walk through the open gate because you feel your clothes are too stained. You choose to stay outside in the biting cold wind, shivering and frantically working to scrub your own soul clean, completely missing the glorious truth that I have already provided the cleansing rain. I hear the way you pray when you are alone in your room. My beloved child, I listen to the countless desperate times you bring up the exact same mistakes, apologizing over and over with a trembling voice for things I completely forgave the very first time you whispered my name in genuine sorrow. You keep dragging the ancient buried bones of your past back up to the surface, laying them out before me, as if I had somehow forgotten your history. I have not forgotten your history. I intentionally and lovingly cast your sins into the deepest part of the sea, as far as the east is from the west. Why do you insist on diving back into those dark, suffocating, freezing waters to retrieve the very things I have already washed away forever? You have developed a painful, subtle belief that holding tightly to your guilt is a sign of spiritual maturity. You mistakenly think that if you stop feeling terrible about what happened yesterday, it means you do not truly care about your relationship with me today. But holding on to your guilt does not make you holy. It does not make you humble. It does not bring you 1 inch closer to my heart. It only keeps you tightly bound in heavy chains that I have already unlocked. The lock is completely broken. The heavy iron bands have been permanently severed. The only thing keeping you tethered to this dark imaginary prison of performance anxiety is your own refusal to simply let the chains fall from your wrists and walk freely away into the light. Your frantic daily efforts to prove your worth are actually blocking you from experiencing the genuine, profound rest I have so carefully designed for your weary spirit. I watch you pace the floors of your mind, late at night, staring at the ceiling, mentally turning over every detail of your life, trying to figure out how to be better, how to fix everything that feels broken, and how to finally become the flawless person you think I demand you to be. But the rest I offer you cannot be obtained through hustle. It cannot be secured through a perfectly executed daily routine, a flawless performance, or an unbroken streak of good behavior. True spiritual rest is found entirely in total surrender. It is found in the quiet, breathtaking realization that you are deeply loved, completely independent of your daily performance. I want you to experience the deep, uninterrupted, peaceful sleep of a tiny child who rests completely safely in their parents' arms, utterly unconcerned with earning the right to be held. That child does not worry about whether they contributed enough to the household that day. They simply rest fully knowing they belong. That is exactly how I want you to rest in my presence today. You are constantly trying to hand me a handful of your own tired efforts, bringing me your exhaustion, as if it were an offering. But my hands are already full, waiting to offer you the absolute fullness of my unconditional favor. You must simply open your empty hands to receive it. Before the heavy rusted doors of your earthly circumstances can finally swing open, before the external storms raging in your life can be commanded to completely cease, this violent internal war must end. You must bravely raise the white flag of surrender against your own relentless perfectionism. You must lay down your heavy weapons of self-condemnation and step away from the battlefield of your mind. I cannot pour the fresh, vibrant new wine of your coming miracle into a vessel that is constantly cracking and breaking under the immense crushing pressure of performance anxiety. This is exactly why receiving my peace comes before receiving my miracle. It is a vital order of spiritual healing. If the grand miracle you have been tearfully praying for arrived right now in this exact moment, while you are still trapped in this exhausting cycle of earning and striving, you would not be able to enjoy it. You would immediately begin stressing over how to maintain it. You would inevitably turn the beautiful blessing into a terrifying burden, living in constant fear that one small mistake would cause me to abruptly take it all away. So we must heal the hidden root first. We must lovingly teach your anxious heart how to receive a magnificent gift without immediately reaching into your pockets to figure out how to pay for it. I am gently, patiently prying your tight, white-knuckled fingers open one by one. I am asking you to release your fierce grip on your own redemption. Let go of the desperate need to earn my smile, because my smile is already resting warmly upon you. Breathe deeply into your lungs, the cool, refreshing, liberating air of entirely unmerited grace. Feel it filling the empty spaces inside you, washing away the toxic residue of your perfectionism. Feel those heavy, restrictive chains of impossible expectations finally slipping off your tired shoulders, sliding down your arms, and clattering uselessly to the floor at your feet. You are free. You are completely free from the impossible, flawless standard you aggressively created for yourself. Now, as the loud, chaotic noise of your endless striving finally begins to quiet down into a peaceful silence, we can finally look deeply at the true reason you have been running so hard for so long and gently face the silent, terrifying fear that has kept you hiding in the shadows all these years. I know exactly why you hide, my child. I see the quiet, desperate panic that rises in your chest whenever someone gets too close to the genuine, unpolished version of your heart. You have slowly, painfully convinced yourself of a devastating lie. That if anyone, especially me, were to truly see you, if all your carefully constructed walls suddenly fell away, and your deepest, most closely guarded secrets were exposed to the clear, unforgiving light of day, you would be entirely and permanently rejected. This is the true root of your profound exhaustion. This is the terrifying phantom that chases you through the quiet hours of the night, long after the rest of the world has gone to sleep. You genuinely believe that to be fully known is to be fully abandoned. You look back at your own history, running your trembling hands over the raw, jagged edges of your past mistakes, and you automatically assume that my reaction will mirror the reaction of a fragile, easily disappointed world. You have spent your entire life observing how quickly human love can fade when imperfections are revealed, and you have tragically projected that same conditional fleeting love onto me. Because of this deep, agonizing fear of rejection, you have become an absolute expert at running. You are reenacting the oldest tragedy of the human heart, just like the very first souls who walked the earth when they heard my voice echoing gently through the cool evening breeze of the garden and suddenly realized their own painful imperfections. You instinctively run for the thickest shadows. You scramble to gather up whatever temporary fragile coverings you can find. You use your worldly achievements, your perpetually busy schedule, your forced laughter, and your perfectly rehearsed polite conversations as a desperate camouflage, frantically trying to cover the broken pieces of your spirit. You sit quietly in the dark, isolated corners of your life, pulling your knees tightly to your chest, mistakenly believing that if you just stay quiet enough, if you just keep your head down, and do not draw any attention to yourself, I will not see the immense throbbing pain you are carrying. You think the darkness somehow protects you from my judgment. But my beloved child, the darkness does not hide you from me. It only isolates you from the profound warmth of my love. I do not look at you with eyes searching for a reason to turn away. I have never once walked through the garden of your life to hunt you down in anger or to demand a flawless explanation for your failures. When I call your name in the quiet, unexpected moments of your day, I am not calling you out of the shadows to condemn you, shame you, or humiliate you in front of the watching world. I am simply lovingly calling you back to my side. I want to replace your terrifying isolation with the overwhelming comfort of my presence. I am asking you to step out from behind the heavy, thick trees of your own self-doubt. You do not need to sew together leaves of perfectionism to make yourself presentable to me. I am the one who clothes you. I am the one who covers your deepest vulnerabilities with the unbreakable, beautiful fabric of my grace. I need you to gather your courage right now. Take a deep, steadying breath and listen to the most liberating truth your weary soul will ever hear. I already know. I know absolutely everything about you. There is not a single hidden flaw, not one secret regret, and not a single fractured piece of your history that is hidden from my sight. I know about the moments you are entirely too ashamed to ever speak aloud to another living soul. I know about the hasty choices that still make your heart sink when the memory unexpectedly surfaces in the middle of the afternoon. I have seen the absolute worst of your struggles. I have watched you on the nights you felt completely defeated, lying on the floor convinced you had ruined everything forever. I know the times you allowed paralyzing fear to dictate your path instead of trusting my quiet voice. I have seen it all clearly, entirely, and without any filter, and I love you intensely anyway. My love for you did not pause, stutter, or hesitate for even a fraction of a second when you stumbled. It did not pull back in disgust when you revealed your human frailty. You do not have to carry the exhausting, suffocating burden of pretending around me anymore. I have already looked into the deepest, darkest, most complicated depths of your soul, and I have decisively declared you incredibly precious. Imagine the profound relief of walking into a room where you do not have to hold your breath, where you do not have to carefully monitor every single word you say to ensure you are perfectly understood. That is exactly what my presence is for you. It is the ultimate safe harbor. You can finally let your tense shoulders drop. You can finally exhale the heavy breath you have been anxiously holding for years. I am not surprised by your humanity. My child, I designed you from the dust of the earth. I know exactly how fragile you are. I have always known you would need a savior, and I have always been entirely willing to be exactly that for you. I want to gently lift your chin right now, so you can look directly into the light of my truth and understand this entirely new, vital reality. Your past mistakes are not permanent identity markers. They are simply events that happened in a specific moment in time. They are absolutely not who you are. The enemy of your soul has worked relentlessly day and night to blur that crucial line. He constantly whispers the toxic, suffocating lie that your failures are permanently tattooed across your forehead for everyone to see. He wants you to believe that you are fundamentally, irreversibly flawed at your very core. He meticulously crafts this heavy, oppressive lie for one specific, devastating reason: to maintain your isolation. If he can keep you entirely convinced that you are far too broken to ever be truly loved, he can keep you hiding in the shadows, paralyzed by shame, and completely disconnected from the vibrant, abundant, miraculous life I have destined for you. But I am stripping that vicious lie of all its power over your mind right now. I am breaking the heavy chains of that false identity. Your true identity is not and has never been anchored in what you have done wrong. It is eternally, immovably anchored in what I have done for you. When I look at you, I do not see a tragic collection of past failures, missed opportunities, or regrettable decisions. I see a beautiful living masterpiece in progress. I see the stunning, brilliant soul I intentionally breathed my own breath into. You are not defined by the absolute worst moment of your life. You are defined by the immense, incalculable price I was willing to pay to bring you safely home. Grace has entirely washed away the rigid labels the world has tried to place upon you, and it has certainly washed away the terrible, unforgiving names you have called yourself in the mirror. Because of this glorious truth, you never have to endure this deep, spiritual loneliness ever again. The agonizing ache of feeling entirely misunderstood, the quiet, daily grief of feeling fundamentally separated from pure love. I am washing all of that away with the absolute, unbreakable promise of my unwavering presence. Even on the days when you feel entirely unlovable, even when you are frustrated with your own lack of progress, I am sitting right there beside you. I am holding your trembling hand, and I am fiercely refusing to leave. I am the true friend who stays when the room gets cold and dark. I am the loving father who runs eagerly towards you while you are still a long way off, completely disregarding your stained clothes, waving away your heavy, practiced apologies, caring only that you have finally turned your face toward home. My presence is the soothing, permanent balm for the deep loneliness that has ached inside you for so long. Stepping out from behind the trees of your fear and walking fully out of the shadows requires immense, breathtaking courage. But you do not have to take that step entirely on your own. I am reaching out, offering you my strong hand to help you take that first, beautiful, vulnerable step into the light. As you bravely walk into the warm, healing radiance of my truth, allowing yourself to be fully seen and unconditionally loved, exactly as you are, you will physically feel the cold, heavy grip of shame completely shatter and fall away from your life. You are stepping closer to the calm, unshakable assurance that internal rest must intimately precede external change. You are learning deep within the marrow of your bones the vital lesson that my peace comes before my miracle. And as this profound, unconditional acceptance begins to gently soften the hard, protective, weary edges of your heart, you will finally find the quiet strength to look down at the heavy stones you have been carrying deep in your pockets, the sharp, heavy stones of resentment and anger that have kept you anchored to your pain for far too long. You have carried these stones for so many years that the fabric of your pockets is completely frayed, and the terrible weight of them has caused you to walk with a permanent spiritual limp. I see how tightly your hands are clenched around them, Some of these sharp, jagged stones are carved with the names of people who deeply betrayed your trust, people who walked away when they promised to stay, or people who spoke cruel, careless words that lodged firmly in your spirit. But I also see the stones that are the heaviest of all the ones that bear your own name. These are the smooth, dense rocks of deep self-hatred, the bitter resentment you hold toward yourself for not being wiser, for staying too long in bad situations, or for trusting the wrong people. You have convinced yourself that if you hold on to this burning anger, it will somehow serve as a protective shield, warning you never to make the same mistakes again. You think this bitterness is your armor, keeping you safe from a harsh, unpredictable world. But my precious child, I must gently tell you the truth. This anger is not a shield. It is a slow, creeping, toxic poison. It is silently seeping into the soil of your heart, slowly suffocating the beautiful spiritual growth I have been trying to cultivate within you. When you hold on to bitterness, you are not punishing the people who hurt you. You are only punishing yourself. You are allowing the individuals who broke your heart in the past to continue breaking it every single day in the present. Unforgiveness is a heavy, rusted anchor that you have voluntarily tied around your own waist. No matter how desperately you paddle toward the bright, hopeful future I have designed for you, you cannot move forward because this anchor is keeping you firmly tethered to your deepest pain. I want to cut that heavy rope today. I want you to feel the incredible, breathtaking release of leaving that pain at the bottom of the sea where it belongs. I want to be absolutely clear with you. I am not dismissing the reality of your earthly wounds. When you were betrayed, I was right there with you, catching every single tear that fell in the dark. I felt the exact moment your heart shattered, and I sat with you in the devastating aftermath. I know the profound unfairness of what was done to you, and I know exactly how much it cost you to simply survive it and keep breathing. I am not asking you to pretend the pain never happened, and I am certainly not asking you to minimize the deep damage that was unfairly caused to your spirit. What I am asking you to do is infinitely more beautiful and infinitely more freeing. I am asking you to look at those deep, painful wounds and decide once and for all that they will no longer be the controlling authority in your life. I am asking you to take the heavy gavel of justice out of your own exhausted, trembling hands and place it securely into mine. I am the ultimate vindicator. I see all things. I weigh all hearts, and I promise you that no tear you have ever cried in sorrow has gone unnoticed by heaven. Your pain matters deeply to me, but it must not be your master. To step into the true freedom I have prepared for you, you must be willing to release the burning desire for worldly revenge. You must let go of the secret hope that you will one day see those who hurt you suffer the exact same way you suffered. That dark, vengeful desire is completely blinding you to my goodness. It forces you to constantly look backward at the wreckage of yesterday, making it entirely impossible for you to see the beautiful, fresh mercies I am actively placing right in front of you today. I am inviting you to practice the profound, life-altering biblical theme of extending the exact same boundless mercy you're receiving from me toward others. Just as I have completely wiped your slate clean, requiring absolutely nothing from you but an open heart, I am asking you to cancel the impossible debts of those who owe you apologies you may never receive. Forgiveness is not a gift you give to the person who wronged you. It is a vital, necessary gift you give to your own weary soul. It is the deliberate, courageous choice to say that your future is far too important to remain held hostage by the careless actions of someone in your past. I know exactly how much it hurts to let go. I know your flesh screams against it, whispering that it feels like you are letting them get away with what they did, that you are somehow validating their cruelty. But you are not releasing them from my ultimate justice. You are simply unlocking the heavy iron door and releasing yourself from their prison. Imagine for a moment what your daily life would look like if you were no longer consumed by this hidden, simmering anger. Imagine waking up in the crisp morning air and not feeling the immediate familiar ache of resentment tightening your chest before you even step out of bed. That beautiful, light, airy freedom is not a distant, impossible dream. It is exactly what I am extending to you right now. But to receive it, you must willingly open your hands. You cannot physically receive the vibrant, magnificent new blessings I desperately want to hand you if your fists remain tightly, aggressively clenched around the useless stones of your past injuries. And my precious child, it is finally time to drop the heavy, crushing stones of self-condemnation. You have been so incredibly, relentlessly harsh with yourself. You look back at the younger version of yourself, the one who was scared, the one who was lonely, the one who was simply doing the absolute best they could, with the limited wisdom and deep unhealed brokenness they carried at the time, and you judge them with a ruthless, unforgiving lack of compassion. You must stop speaking to my beautiful, intentional creation with such bitter contempt. The profound, overwhelming forgiveness I have granted you covers every single version of who you used to be. It covers the version of you that failed, the version of you that gave up, and the version of you that walked away. If I, the creator of the universe, have looked at your entire, complicated life and chosen to definitively declare you entirely forgiven, who are you to overrule my heavenly verdict? Who are you to stubbornly insist that you are still guilty when I have already banged the ultimate gavel and declared you completely innocent? You must actively align your trembling heart with my unshakable truth. You must extend the beautiful, soft grace of heaven to your own tear-stained reflection in the mirror as you slowly, bravely open your hands and let these jagged, heavy stones finally fall away. You are doing something incredibly powerful in the unseen spiritual realm. You are actively clearing the vital internal space required to fully understand and embrace the truth that my peace comes before my miracle. You see, as long as your heart was entirely filled with a dark, heavy clutter of resentment, simmering anger, and punishing self-hatred, there was absolutely no room for the gentle, quiet seeds of true joy to take root and grow. By deliberately releasing the bitterness, you are violently tilling the hardened, dry soil of your soul, making it soft, receptive, and completely ready for the glorious harvest of blessings that is coming your way. You are creating a vast, quiet, beautiful emptiness within yourself. Not the painful, aching emptiness of worldly loneliness, but the peaceful, sacred emptiness of a holy sanctuary that has just been swept completely clean of all its past debris. This space is exactly where I'm going to build your new life. I am pouring my healing oil into those deep, newly exposed wounds right now. Feel the soothing, comforting warmth of my spirit washing over the places where the resentment used to fiercely burn. Notice how your breathing is already becoming deeper, how the rigid muscles in your back are finally relaxing after years of bracing for the next painful blow. You are learning the magnificent secret of the kingdom, that letting go is not an act of losing, but the ultimate act of gaining. You have surrendered the exhausting illusion of control over your past, and by doing so, you have opened the door wide to the beautiful, peaceful reality of your present. Now, with your hands finally completely empty, completely free of the toxic stones that held you down, you are physically and spiritually prepared to take the next most vital step in our journey together. You are ready to lift those beautifully empty hands toward heaven and discover the breathtaking, life-changing power of yielding absolutely every remaining piece of your story to my perfect, loving authority. Yielding is not a word your weary heart accepts easily. My child, I know that beneath the surface of your brave face lies a fierce, deeply ingrained instinct to tightly control every single detail of your life. From the exact moment you wake up in the morning, your mind is already racing, calculating, planning, and organizing. You constantly rehearse future conversations in your head, trying to predict every possible outcome, so you will never be caught off guard. You meticulously build defensive walls around your heart, scrutinizing everyone who tries to get close, determined to reject them, before they ever have the chance to reject you. You obsessively guard your reputation carefully, curating the version of yourself you present to the world, absolutely terrified that if you slip up, people will see your cracks. You have convinced yourself that if you simply manage your circumstances tightly enough, you can prevent any further pain from touching your life. You even try to micromanage your own spiritual recovery. You want a predictable timeline. You want a clear, logical checklist. You want a firm guarantee that if you take 5 specific steps, your heart will be instantly and permanently healed. You want to be the author, the director, and the sole protector of your own life, holding on to the steering wheel with a grip so incredibly tight that it leaves your hands trembling numb and aching. But this relentless, frantic pursuit of total control is not keeping you safe. It is keeping you imprisoned in a fortress of your own making. Look at the terrible, devastating cost of this constant vigilance. Look at how exhausted you truly are right now. You are living in a perpetual, exhausting state of spiritual defense, constantly bracing your soul for the next invisible impact. This level of spiritual tension is entirely unsustainable. It steals your joy. It robs you of your present moments. And it completely blinds you to the simple, quiet blessings I am placing right in front of you every single day. Your tight grip on the past and your frantic attempts to manipulate the future are failing you. And deep down, in the quietest spaces of your heart, you know this is absolutely true. The heavy yoke you have voluntarily strapped across your own shoulders is crushing you. It is a harsh, unforgiving yoke, built entirely from the heavy timber of self-reliance, perfectionism, and the terrifying, lonely belief that everything relies solely on you. It is chafing your neck. It is bringing you straight to your knees, making every single step forward feel like walking through thick, heavy mud. But I am offering you the profound biblical truth of a magnificent exchange. I am gently asking you to slip your bruised, tired neck out of that heavy, chafing wooden yoke and step completely and freely into mine. My yoke is incredibly easy, and my burden is wonderfully light. When you yoke yourself to me, you are no longer pulling the immense weight of your life completely alone. I do the heavy lifting. I carry the crushing weight of the world, leaving your weary spirit completely free to simply breathe, walk, and trust. To step into this beautiful light burden, we must introduce a vital, transformative concept into the very center of your heart: absolute surrender. I know the word surrender feels dangerous and alarming to your worldly ears. In the physical world you live in, surrender is deeply associated with weakness, failure, and overwhelming shame. It implies waving a white flag of defeat and letting your enemies walk all over you in total humiliation. But in my heavenly kingdom, the rules are entirely reversed. Total surrender is never a sign of defeat. It is the ultimate breathtaking act of immense courage and profound trust. It takes absolutely no courage to frantically try to control everything out of raw, blinding panic. But it takes an incredible, beautiful amount of bravery to look at the terrifying, unpredictable storms raging loudly in your life, to look at the massive waves crashing violently over the sides of your fragile boat, and to deliberately choose to take your trembling hands completely off the wheel. Surrender is the moment you finally admit that your own strength has reached its absolute limit, and you are finally ready to lean entirely on mine. It is the brave confession that you do not have all the answers, and the peaceful realization that you do not need to. True surrender is the powerful realization that fighting the violent current is only pulling you deeper under the water. It is the conscious, courageous decision to stop thrashing against the waves and to finally let my strong, steady hands pull you safely out of the deep. Pull you. I am inviting you right now, in this quiet, sacred space between us, to physically, mentally, and spiritually empty your hands completely. You have been walking around for years, trying to hold all the sharp, shattered pieces of your life together, desperately trying to glue the broken fragments back into their original shape before anyone notices the immense damage. But holding on to broken glass is only making your own hands bleed. I want you to bring those broken pieces directly to me. Place them gently and completely into my hands. Bring me your deeply unresolved questions, the painful echoing whys that keep you wide awake, staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m. Bring me the lingering toxic shame that still aggressively whispers, "You are not quite good enough to be loved." Bring me the fractured relationships you cannot seem to fix, the heavy financial worries you cannot seem to solve, and the quiet, secret fears you have never spoken aloud to another living soul. Hand every single bit of it over to me. Yield your desperate, exhausted need to understand everything right now. Yield your rigid human timelines. Do not hold a single jagged piece back in reserve. Let go of the desperate need to prove your own worth, and instead, allow me to prove my boundless faithfulness to you. You are deeply afraid that if you give me the broken pieces of your story, I will simply look at the mess with profound disappointment and throw them away. You fear that your ruins are far too extensive, that you have made entirely too many miscalculations, and that the damage to your foundation is completely beyond repair. But I am the master builder. I do not look at your brokenness the way a fragile, judgmental world looks at it. The world sees a tragic pile of useless rubble and quickly walks away to find something newer and easier to manage. But when I look at the exact same ruins of your carefully laid plans, I see the absolute perfect solid foundation for a magnificent new beginning. I hold the true divine blueprint for your life. I specialize in taking the absolute worst, most devastating moments of your history and slowly, intentionally weaving them into a breathtaking tapestry of healing and grace. I see the magnificent structure that will rise from these scattered stones, built stronger and more beautiful than anything you could have ever constructed on your own. But I cannot begin the beautiful work of reconstruction while you are still aggressively standing in the middle of the construction site, stubbornly trying to hammer the broken boards together yourself. You must step completely back. You must let me do what only I can do, trusting that my hands are infinitely more capable than yours. This exact moment is where your profound emotional journey dramatically and permanently shifts. We are moving out of this frantic, breathless, exhausting struggle for worldly control, and we are stepping deeply into a beautiful, quiet, unshakable posture of calm acceptance. When you finally realize that the universe will not collapse if you stop trying to hold it up, an incredible, overwhelming wave of profound relief will wash over your entire being. You do not have to be the strongest person in the room anymore. You do not have to have everything perfectly figured out. I am asking you to finally deeply exhale. Let the rigid, painful tension slowly drain from your neck and your tired shoulders. Relinquish the agonizing, impossible need to constantly fix yourself, because you are not a broken machine that needs to be endlessly repaired by your own tired hands. You are my precious, incredibly valued child, who simply needs to be held. Let the immense, heavy pressure of your own expectations completely dissolve into the warmth of my unconditional love. As you finally rest securely in my arms, completely giving up the exhausting illusion of control, you will feel the heavy spiritual atmosphere surrounding you instantly begin to lift. You will deeply and permanently experience the glorious, life-changing reality that my peace comes before my miracle. But as this new, profound calm begins to settle over your trembling spirit, you will naturally find yourself stepping into a vastly different, quiet landscape. I know exactly how your human heart works. You bravely handed over your broken pieces, you surrendered your desperate need for control, and a part of you sincerely expected the sky to immediately tear open with a brilliant, blinding flash of complete restoration. You thought that because you finally let go, the difficult circumstances surrounding your life would instantly vanish by morning. But when the sun rises, and the heavy situation is still sitting right there on your doorstep, a familiar, frantic urgency begins to rise, perfectly back up in your chest. You look around at the unchanging scenery and wonder if you somehow did surrender wrong. You find yourself standing in a vast, silent, dry expanse, feeling entirely exposed and confused by the lack of immediate change. This quiet place you have entered is the wilderness, and I know, my child, how much the wilderness terrifies you. You have been conditioned by a fast-paced, demanding world to believe that if a problem is not solved immediately, it means the process has entirely failed. You are deeply frustrated when the answers do not arrive with the speed of lightning. You want a sudden dramatic rescue. You want the deep, complicated knots of your life untangled in a matter of seconds. And you want the emotional pain to simply vanish like a morning mist. I watch you constantly checking the horizon, watching the metaphorical clock on the wall, nervously waiting for the exact moment your external reality will finally catch up to the internal decision you just made. You desperately want the financial pressure to break today, the broken relationship to heal perfectly by tomorrow, and the overwhelming confusion to be permanently replaced by absolute clarity right now. When the hours turn into days, and the days stretch slowly into long, agonizing weeks without a visible shift, I hear the quiet, heartbroken whispers of your rising doubts. You begin to ask if I am truly listening. You wonder if your prayers are simply bouncing off an invisible brass ceiling, falling completely flat on the dry desert floor. You start to panic, desperately trying to reach back and pick up the heavy yoke you just set down, convinced that if I am not moving fast enough, you must take matters back into your own exhausted hands. But I am asking you to resist that frantic, deeply ingrained urge to run, and instead practice the difficult, beautiful virtue of patience. I must speak a vital, unshakable truth into your spirit today. This silent wilderness is absolutely not a place of punishment. It is not a barren wasteland where I have sent you to wander aimlessly because I am disappointed in you. The enemy desperately wants you to believe that you are in this uncomfortable season because you missed a crucial turn, or because you are somehow being penalized for your past mistakes. But the wilderness is actually a sacred, highly intentional place of divine preparation. Every single one of my most cherished servants, the ones who carried the greatest callings and witnessed the most magnificent breakthroughs, had to first walk the quiet, stretching sands of the desert. It is out here, completely away from the loud, chaotic noise of the world, where your spiritual endurance is truly forged. I bring you into the wilderness not to break you, but to completely remake you. I remove the external distractions so you can finally learn the distinct, quiet cadence of my voice. You are not lost. My child, you are exactly where you need to be for this specific chapter of your story. The landscape may look entirely barren to your physical eyes, but in the spiritual realm, it is incredibly fertile ground. You must completely change the way you view this season of waiting. You have mistakenly viewed waiting as a passive, useless delay, like sitting anxiously in a cold, sterile waiting room, entirely powerless, simply passing the time until your name is finally called. But in my kingdom, waiting faithfully is a profoundly active, purposeful state of spiritual growth. It is not a pause in your journey. It is an entirely necessary part of the journey itself. Think of a massive ancient tree standing tall against the violent winds. Long before its thick branches ever reached high into the open sky, it spent years in the absolute dark, silently pushing its roots deep into the hidden soil. During this quiet time, I am doing that exact same deep, invisible root work within your tired soul. I am stretching your capacity to hold the massive blessing I'm preparing to hand you. If I gave you the heavy, glorious weight of the miracle before your roots were driven deep enough into my grace, the very first storm of adversity would completely uproot you. I love you entirely too much to let a premature blessing destroy your foundation. So I am using this stretching season of uncertainty to build an unbreakable resilience within you. I intimately know the sharp, agonizing fear that constantly whispers, "You have been completely forgotten." When the days are long and the silence feels entirely deafening, your mind races with the terrifying thought that I have moved on to someone else, leaving you behind in the dust. You equate my silence with my absence, or worse, with my anger. But my silence is never an indication that I have abandoned you. A loving teacher is always entirely quiet while the student is taking the test. I am standing right beside you, watching with immense pride as you learn to walk entirely by faith rather than by sight. I am actively holding the boundaries of your life, ensuring that the blistering heat of the desert does not consume you. I am working powerfully in the background, carefully aligning the people, the resources, and the exact circumstances required for your ultimate deliverance. I have not forgotten your name, and I have absolutely not forgotten the promises I have carefully spoken over your life. Every single tear you have cried in this silent place has been carefully gathered. Every moment of frustration has been lovingly recorded. I am intimately aware of exactly how long you have been waiting, and I am not ignoring your quiet cries for relief. The true challenge of the wilderness is learning to completely shift your focus. I need you to deliberately stop aggressively watching the clock and start intentionally watching my character. The clock will only give you anxiety because human timelines are entirely fragile and hopelessly impatient. But my character is completely flawless, eternally consistent, and endlessly compassionate. When you focus on my unwavering goodness, the agonizing pressure of the timeline begins to lose its heavy grip on your mind. You begin to realize that because I am deeply good, my timing must also be deeply good. I am never, ever late. I do not operate on the frantic, rushed schedules of a panicked world. I work in the perfect, brilliant rhythm of eternity. I see the massive, complicated tapestry of your entire life from beginning to end. And I know the exact perfect moment when the external shift will bring you the greatest possible joy and the most enduring spiritual freedom. If the door remains firmly closed today, it is only because I am actively preparing you for the incredible room that lies on the other side. You are navigating this wilderness beautifully, even on the days when you feel entirely weak and completely defeated. I see the immense courage it takes to wake up every single morning and choose to trust me again, even when the horizon looks entirely unchanged. The sheer fact that you are still standing, still hoping, and still reaching out for my hand proves that the profound inner work is already taking magnificent root. I am gently teaching you how to find true, unshakable contentment in my presence alone, entirely independent of your changing circumstances. This is the ultimate glorious freedom I desire for you. I want you to be so deeply anchored in my unconditional love that an open door or a closed door does not dictate your joy. By allowing this deep internal transformation to completely take hold, you are preparing your heart to carry the coming breakthrough without making it an idol. You are actively proving to the enemy, to the watching world, and most importantly, to your own weary mind, that your faith is real, resilient, and deeply authentic. You are finally permanently anchoring the magnificent truth inside your waiting heart. That internal transformation must intimately precede external change. You are learning, in the absolute deepest parts of your soul, the glorious, life-sustaining lesson that my peace comes before my miracle. And as this quiet endurance hardens into unshakable confidence, you are ready to stop looking backward. You have spent entirely too much of your precious life with your head turned anxiously over your shoulder, constantly checking to see if your past is finally catching up with you. Even as your faith grows stronger and the silent wilderness begins to quiet your soul, there is still a lingering dark silhouette trailing closely behind you. It is the heavy, suffocating shadow of yesterday. For years you have worn the restrictive garments of an outcast, quietly adopting the tragic, deeply painful identity of a permanent failure. You have allowed the mistakes of your previous seasons, the missteps you made when you were hurting and confused, to dictate how you define yourself today. You mistakenly believe that a broken chapter somehow equates to an entirely broken book. But I am inviting you right now, in this powerful, sacred moment of transition, to take a bold, definitive step forward and completely sever the mental ties to that old, dead identity. You are absolutely no longer the person who made those frantic, fearful decisions in the dark. The version of you that stumbled, the version of you that gave up when the road became too steep, and the version of you that settled for far less than my absolute best. That version is entirely gone. You must actively stop trying to resurrect an identity that I have already buried in the deepest parts of the sea. I know exactly how the persistent whispering lies of the enemy relentlessly echo in your tired mind. In the quiet, vulnerable moments of your day, when you dare to imagine a beautiful, completely restored future, those familiar, toxic voices suddenly rise up to pull you back down into the dirt. They hiss that your future is forever stained by your history, whispering that you are entirely disqualified from receiving true abundance because your hands are simply too dirty from where you have been. They try to convince you that any success, any peace, or any joy you experience will only be temporary, a fragile, fleeting illusion that will instantly shatter the moment the watching world realizes who you really are. But I am the ultimate author of your future, and I am telling you with absolute, unshakable heavenly authority that those whispers are nothing but empty, powerless lies. Your history does not possess the authority to dictate your destiny. The enemy only reminds you of your past because he is absolutely terrified of your future. He knows that once you fully realize who you truly are in me, you will become entirely unstoppable. It is time to aggressively, permanently evict those lies from the sacred space of your mind. You are not a prisoner on parole, walking cautiously around with a permanent spiritual record that I am constantly monitoring for a single slip-up. You are completely, gloriously exonerated. I want to anchor your trembling heart deeply in the magnificent, life-changing biblical principle of the new creation. When you placed your fragile, weary heart completely into my hands, I did not simply patch up your old life. I did not just sweep the floors of your broken, collapsing house, apply a fresh coat of bright paint over the deep structural rot, and tell you to simply try a little harder tomorrow. I did something infinitely more miraculous and profoundly deeper. I made you entirely new. The old has completely passed away. Behold, absolutely all things are made new. This is not a poetic metaphor, my child. This is your absolute, undeniable spiritual reality. You have been entirely reborn into a living, breathing, unshakable hope. Every single morning when the sun rises and touches your face, my mercies are brand new, specifically designed and measured to meet you in the exact moment you are in. Why would you stubbornly insist on wearing the filthy, tattered rags of your past when I have carefully wrapped you in a brilliant, flawless robe of my own righteousness? You must begin to see yourself exactly as I see you. You are completely clean. You are profoundly chosen. You are fiercely and unconditionally loved. The heavy stains of yesterday have been violently and permanently washed away by the overwhelming, unstoppable tide of my grace. You cannot walk effectively, confidently, or safely into the beautiful future I have prepared for you while you are still staring intensely at the wreckage of your past. Think of a runner trying to win a critical race while constantly looking backward over their shoulder. They quickly lose their speed. They drift entirely out of their proper lane, and eventually they trip over minor obstacles they would have easily avoided if they had only kept their eyes focused straight ahead on the finish line. When you obsessively replay what you lost, what you broke, or what you should have done entirely differently, You are completely blinding yourself to the incredible open doors I am placing right in front of you today. I am asking you to practice an active, forward-looking faith. It requires immense, breathtaking courage to step completely out of the familiar, comfortable shadows and into the bright, revealing light of my truth. I know the shadows feel incredibly safe because they hide your insecurities and mask your deep vulnerabilities, but they also completely hide your brilliant God-given potential. The light is where you grow. The light is where you truly heal. Do not be afraid to step into the warmth of my presence, fully exposed, fully known, and completely unashamed of the beautiful scars that prove you survived. To fully embrace this glorious new identity, there is one final incredibly heavy chain you must deliberately and consciously break. You must finally completely forgive yourself. I have already forgiven you. I have wiped the eternal ledger entirely clean, and I have chosen to remember your past sins no more. But my divine perfect forgiveness cannot bear its full miraculous fruit in your daily life until you make the conscious decision to align your own internal verdict with mine. By refusing to forgive yourself, by holding on to that bitter self-hatred, you are unknowingly elevating your own flawed judgment above my perfect judgment. You are acting as the ultimate judge of your own weary soul, demanding a punishment that I have already permanently canceled. It is time to lay that heavy, exhausting gavel down for good. Look in the mirror, look directly into your own tired eyes, and speak the overwhelming grace of heaven over your own life. Tell yourself aloud that you are allowed to move on. Tell yourself that you are allowed to be happy, allowed to heal completely, and allowed to enthusiastically accept the magnificent second chance I have so freely given you. This profound act of self-forgiveness is the ultimate key that unlocks the heavy door to your future. It completely clears the internal space, removing the toxic clutter of regret, so that your hands are entirely free to reach out and receive the new blessings I am actively bringing toward you. Feel the emotional atmosphere around you steadily and powerfully rising. You are fundamentally shifting out of the quiet, reflective state of simply learning, and you are boldly stepping into the vibrant, powerful arena of active, unshakable faith. You are no longer just quietly surviving the dry wilderness. You are confidently marching through it with your head held high, completely secure in the beautiful new name I have given you. You are leaving the heavy, suffocating shadow of yesterday, exactly where it permanently belongs in the past. As you confidently embrace this renewed identity, completely severing the lies that held you back, you are actively preparing your heart for the massive external breakthrough that is rapidly approaching. You are proving that the deep, invisible root work of the wilderness has successfully taken a permanent hold in your life. Your soul is now completely anchored in the profound truth that your worth is absolutely not defined by your history, but entirely by my unconditional, endless love. You stand completely ready, fully understanding the beautiful eternal sequence of my kingdom. Internal transformation must always, without exception, precede external change. You finally deeply comprehend the glorious reality that my peace comes before my miracle. And as this profound, liberating peace fortifies your entire spirit, you are entirely prepared to face whatever new challenges remain on the horizon, perfectly anchored for the storms ahead. Even though you are now standing on this beautifully restored foundation, completely clothed in your new identity, I must gently prepare your heart for the reality of the world you still walk in. I want to build a profound, unshakable, spiritual resilience deep within your bones. Because the truth is, the winds of this earth will inevitably blow again. Sometimes, just as you finally find your footing, just as the heavy clouds of the wilderness begin to part, and you take your first deep breath of true freedom, a sudden unexpected storm rolls violently over the horizon. The phone rings with unsettling news. A financial pressure suddenly reappears out of nowhere, or a difficult situation at work threatens to unravel the fragile stability you have just started to enjoy. I see the immediate visceral reaction in your body when this happens. I watch how your chest instantly tightens, how your breathing immediately grows shallow, and how a familiar, icy wave of panic tries to crash violently over the bow of your freshly healed heart. You look at the dark, churning waters surrounding your life, and your first human instinct is absolute terror. You assume that because the wind is howling, something has gone terribly, irreversibly wrong. In these vulnerable moments of sudden chaos, the enemy will always try to launch a ruthless psychological attack against your mind. He uses these new trials as a weapon, whispering frantic, suffocating lies directly into your ear. He will eagerly point at the rising waves and tell you that your recent spiritual breakthrough was nothing more than a fragile, temporary illusion. He will try to convince you that because a new storm has arrived, you must have done something wrong to lose my favor. He wants you to panic. He wants to push you aggressively back into those old, familiar, exhausting patterns of shame and paralyzing doubt. He hopes that if the thunder is loud enough, you will immediately drop your confidence, assume you are being punished for your past mistakes, and desperately try to pick up that heavy, broken yoke of self-reliance all over again. He wants you to believe that my grace has an expiration date, and that this new hardship is the undeniable proof that I have finally grown tired of helping you. But I need you to stand incredibly firm right now, my precious child. I need you to look directly at the churning dark waters of your current circumstances and understand a vital, unshakable biblical truth. While you are entirely and eternally forgiven, you are absolutely not immune to earthly trials. The presence of a violent storm does not ever indicate the absence of my love, nor does it mean that my boundless grace has been revoked. Rain falls on the righteous and the unrighteous alike. This world is fundamentally fractured, and the chaotic winds of adversity will occasionally blow loudly against the walls of your house. I never promised you a temporary earthly life completely free from trouble, but I absolutely promised you that the trouble would never, ever be allowed to destroy you. The magnificent difference between yesterday and today is not the weather outside. The difference is the solid, impenetrable rock your house is now permanently built upon. You are no longer standing on the shifting, unpredictable sands of your own exhausting efforts. You are standing entirely on me. Because of this glorious reality, your reaction to the storm can now be entirely beautifully different. In the past, the absolute slightest gust of wind would send you frantically running desperately, trying to tie down all the loose ends of your life with your own exhausted, trembling strength. You would let the external circumstances completely dictate your internal joy. But now I am offering you an unbreakable, eternal tether. I am teaching you how to actively use my promises as a massive, heavy iron anchor for your soul. When the waves inevitably rise, you do not have to rise in frantic panic alongside them. You can deliberately, courageously drop that anchor deep into the immovable ocean floor of my absolute faithfulness. You can loudly remind your own racing heart of exactly what I have already brought you through. An anchor does not magically stop the storm from raging in the sky, but it absolutely perfectly prevents your fragile ship from being swept away into the dark. It holds you perfectly grounded, safe, and secure, even when the winds of adversity are screaming loudly in your ears. I want to reveal a profound, liberating secret about my kingdom to you, right now. True, enduring spiritual maturity is not the total absence of trouble. It is the breathtaking, undeniable presence of calm, right in the very middle of the chaos. It is the magnificent ability to sit quietly in the bottom of the boat while the storm rages all around you, knowing with absolute unshakable certainty that the creator of the wind and the waves is resting right there beside you. You do not ever have to frantically bail the water out of the boat all by yourself anymore. You can look directly at the terrifying circumstances, feel the entirely natural human instinct to be deeply afraid, and consciously, bravely choose to exhale that fear completely into my capable hands. This is the beautiful, quiet power of perseverance. It is the deliberate choice to trust my character when you cannot possibly understand my immediate plan. When you choose to rest instead of run, you are actively proving that your faith is no longer fragile. You are demonstrating that you have learned to find true hope during hardship. I want to permanently fortify your mind against the inevitable setbacks of life. You must aggressively refuse to let a difficult Tuesday convince you that you have completely lost your way. A sudden moment of weakness, a passing thought of fear, or a quiet tear of frustration does not mean you have failed the test. It simply means you are human. I am fiercely incredibly proud of you when you stumble, yet still deliberately choose to reach out for my strong hand, instead of hiding in the dark shadows of your old shame. Your spiritual resilience is growing exponentially with every single wave you bravely face. You are actively developing profound spiritual muscles that can only be built by pressing back against heavy, worldly resistance. So I ask you to stand incredibly tall today, my child. Let the wild winds blow. Let the heavy thunder roll loudly across the dark sky. Look the storm directly in the eye and boldly declare that you belong entirely to me. Your foundation will absolutely not crack. Your walls will not crumble. The heavy anchor of my unconditional love is holding you with a grip that the world simply cannot break. Because you have courageously allowed me to heal the deepest, most broken parts of your soul, you now carry a permanent, unshakable sanctuary of quietness within you everywhere you go. The storm may rage violently on the outside, swirling with chaos, confusion, and loud demands, but inside your heart, the waters are completely, perfectly still. This internal, unshakable stability is the greatest, most profound evidence of the entire journey we have taken together. You have so thoroughly and beautifully internalized my presence that you no longer have to constantly look for dramatic external signs to know that I am actively walking with you. You feel the solid, undeniable weight of my comfort resting constantly and securely within your own spirit. You possess the absolute living, breathing proof that internal transformation provides an impenetrable shield against worldly chaos. You are no longer merely waiting for the external circumstances to shift so you can finally be happy. You are walking confidently in the unshakable certainty that my peace comes before my miracle. Now that you have discovered this impenetrable quietness within your own heart, I want to gently lift your gaze away from the horizon of tomorrow and draw your attention strictly to the beauty of today. For so long you have lived in a state of mere spiritual survival. When you are constantly bracing against the violent winds or exhausted from carrying the heavy stones of your past, your vision naturally narrows. You become hyper-focused on the immediate threats, the loud thunder, and the desperate aching need for that one massive breakthrough to finally arrive. I watch how you scan your life, looking for the monumental signs, the parted seas, the sudden windfall, the dramatic apologies, and because those massive events have not yet materialized, you falsely conclude that nothing is happening at all. You have developed a heartbreaking tendency to focus so heavily on the lingering struggles that you completely miss the subtle, quiet, magnificent blessings I am actively pouring out over your life every single day. I want to heal your spiritual eyesight right now. I want to awaken your weary soul to the breathtaking everyday evidence of my relentless love that is already surrounding you on every side. You are no longer just surviving, my beloved child. You are being actively pursued by my unmerited favor. This unmerited favor is not something you have to hunt for, and it is certainly not something you have to earn. It is a beautiful, relentless force that tracks you down every single morning before your feet even touch the floor. I want to introduce you to a profound living hope that completely changes how you experience your daily routine. When you wake up before the heavy responsibilities of the world try to rush back into your mind, I am there, wrapping you in a quiet, undeniable comfort. Do you feel that gentle, settling calm in those first few waking moments? That is not an accident. That is my spirit actively breathing fresh life into your lungs, intentionally equipping you with the exact measure of grace required for whatever this new day will hold. I want you to open your spiritual eyes and look closely at the beautiful tapestry of your ordinary life. The enemy wants you to remain entirely blind to these daily mercies, constantly whispering that if a blessing is not loud and spectacular, it simply does not count. He wants you to remain focused on the empty chair, the unpaid bill, or the unanswered question, completely ignoring the table I have already set before you in the presence of those exact struggles. I want you to begin recognizing my intentional loving hand in the small, quiet provisions you have been walking right past without noticing. See my profound care in the unexpected encouraging message from a friend at the exact moment you felt entirely alone. Notice my gentle provision when a stranger holds a door, offers a warm smile, or extends a sudden kindness that briefly lightens your heavy load. Think about the days when your finances were stretched impossibly thin, yet somehow you had exactly enough to make it through to the end of the week. Those were not fortunate coincidences, my child. Those were highly calculated, deeply personal deliveries of my grace. I am the God who feeds the sparrows and clothes the lilies of the field, and I am meticulously managing the intricate details of your life. Every breath of crisp air that fills your lungs, every moment of unexplainable laughter that breaks through your sadness, and every quiet sunset that paints the evening sky just for you. These are my personal love letters, written specifically for your heart. They are the constant rhythmic heartbeat of an active, deeply alive relationship between a perfect father and his cherished child. As you begin to deliberately collect these small, quiet moments, I want you to feel a massive, profound shift occurring deep within your emotional landscape. We are moving beautifully and decisively past the heavy seasons of fear, pain, and mere endurance, and we are actively stepping into a vibrant, overwhelming sense of joyful awareness. I want gratitude to completely saturate your spirit. Gratitude is not a forced fake smile you wear when things are falling apart. It is a powerful spiritual weapon when you choose to actively thank me for the cup of coffee warming your hands, for the roof sheltering you from the cold rain, and for the quiet peace resting in your mind. You are doing something incredibly destructive to the enemy's plans. You are loudly declaring that your joy cannot be held hostage by your waiting season. You are proving that you do not need the grand final miracle to be completely satisfied in my love today. This profound gratitude completely rewires your anxious brain. It takes the heavy, suffocating magnifying glass off your lingering problems and places it directly over my continuous, unwavering faithfulness. You must deeply understand this beautiful spiritual principle. A genuinely grateful heart is the absolute perfect soil for a massive harvest of blessings. Think of a farmer trying to plant precious life-sustaining seeds. If the ground is completely hard bitter and entirely focused on the lack of rain, the seeds simply bounce off the surface and blow away in the wind. Bitterness and endless complaining harden the soil of your soul, making it entirely impossible for new miracles to take root. But gratitude acts like a gentle, softening rain. When you celebrate the quiet signs of my presence, when you lift your hands and offer a sincere whisper of thanks for the breath in your lungs, you are beautifully tilling the ground of your own heart. You are creating a soft, rich, welcoming environment for the incredible breakthroughs I am preparing to release. I love to pour my abundance into hands that are already raised in thanksgiving for what they currently hold. By simply shifting your focus to the unmerited favor that tracks you down daily, you are actively inviting even more of my glorious presence to manifest in your physical reality. This beautiful awakening to my daily favor proves to you that our relationship is not a formal agreement. It is an active, fiercely alive, and intimately personal connection. You are no longer viewing me as a distant king, sitting on a faraway throne, completely disconnected from the mundane details of your life. You are finally seeing me as your deeply devoted father, walking beside you in the grocery store, sitting with you in the quietness of your living room, and holding your hand during your daily commute. When you smile at the sudden beauty of a blooming flower, you are actively participating in a holy conversation with heaven. You are looking back at me, completely recognizing my fingerprints all over your life, and whispering your profound thanks. This is the magnificent joy of true spiritual maturity. Look at how incredibly far you have come. My precious child, just a short time ago, you were exhausted, dragging the massive, suffocating weight of your past, completely convinced you were entirely alone in the dark. Now you are walking with a light, unburdened step, actively hunting for the beautiful, subtle signs of my goodness hiding in plain sight. Your entire internal landscape has been completely and permanently shifted. You are no longer living as a victim of your circumstances, frantically waiting for external rescue. You are living as a victorious, deeply loved child who knows how to find profound beauty right in the middle of the wilderness. This joyful awareness is the undeniable proof that the deep, invisible root work has been entirely successful. You have allowed me to completely heal your spiritual vision every time you pause to smile at a quiet blessing. Every time you take a deep breath and feel the unshakable comfort of my presence. You are actively living in the glorious reality of the lesson I have been teaching you since the very beginning. You are experiencing the beautiful, breathtaking truth that internal rest is infinitely more valuable than external perfection, because you have learned to be profoundly thankful for the gentle daily rain of my grace. Your heart is now vastly expanded, completely softened, and entirely capable of holding the massive downpour that is coming. You have fundamentally proven to heaven and to yourself that you are ready. By finding deep, abiding joy in the quiet provisions, you have permanently anchored the magnificent reality inside your soul that my peace comes before my miracle. And because this beautiful peace now rules your heart completely, you are standing on the very edge of the most incredible, awe-inspiring season of your life, perfectly positioned for the massive breakthrough that is standing right at your door. As you stand here with your hand resting gently on the very handle of this new door, I want you to take a deep, intentional breath and look out over the brilliant horizon. You have officially reached the eve of restoration. You are standing on the absolute edge of your own personal promised land, and the long, exhausting season of waiting is finally beautifully drawing to a permanent close. I can clearly see the profound mixture of emotions swirling rapidly inside your chest right now. There is a newfound, undeniable joy rising within you. But if I look closely into the absolute deepest corners of your weary heart, I can still see tiny, stubborn remnants of old doubt trying desperately to hide in the shadows. It is entirely natural, my child, to feel a sudden quiet wave of hesitation right before a massive breakthrough occurs. For so long, heavy disappointment was your most consistent, predictable companion. You became so profoundly accustomed to the dry, barren, and unchanging landscape of the wilderness that the sudden, vibrant sight of the promised land almost feels like a fragile, impossible dream, one that might suddenly shatter if you step too heavily or hope too much. You wonder just for a fleeting second if it is truly safe to finally let your guard completely down. You quietly ask yourself if this immense approaching blessing is actually real, or if the rug is about to be pulled out from underneath your tired feet one last time. I am speaking directly to that specific, lingering historical fear today. I want to permanently replace your deeply ingrained dread with an electric, soaring sense of holy anticipation. The enemy knows perfectly well that your external reality is about to drastically shift, and his final desperate tactic is to try and violently sabotage your joy right on the very threshold of your victory. He desperately wants you to enter this new glorious season with a hesitant, cowering posture, constantly looking over your shoulder for a sudden disaster that is absolutely never going to come. But I am calling you today to fiercely, aggressively guard your renewed hope. Do not let the familiar toxic echoes of your past steal the breathtaking magnificence of this exact moment. You must deliberately and consciously align every single one of your racing thoughts entirely with my unbreakable promises. When the quiet whisper of doubt tries to tell you that this upcoming blessing is simply too good to be true, I need you to boldly answer back that it is exactly as good as I am. You are not merely lucky. You are profoundly, fiercely loved. This coming breakthrough is not some random, unpredictable twist of fate. It is the deliberate, highly calculated, and flawless execution of my divine, perfect will for your life. Because this victory is already entirely secure in the heavenly realm, I am asking you to start actively preparing your physical life to receive it right now. I want you to begin acting with the absolute, unshakable confidence of someone who knows without a shadow of a doubt that the battle has already been decisively won. This is the profound, life-changing difference between merely wishing for a miracle and actively, joyfully expecting one. When you are truly expecting a cherished guest to arrive at your home, you do not sit in the dark with the doors permanently locked. You turn on the bright lights, you intentionally prepare the table, you sweep the floors, and you eagerly watch the front window. I am asking you to physically and emotionally make room in your life right now for the very blessings you have been crying out for. If you have been passionately praying for a restored relationship, start deliberately softening your words today and actively practicing the deep forgiveness you will soon need to offer. If you have been pleading for a new, expansive opportunity, begin clearing the unnecessary, exhausting clutter from your daily schedule so your hands are completely free and ready to accept the gift when it finally arrives. Change your physical posture. Lift your chin. Speak about your future, not with the timid, cautious language of a victim, but with the vibrant, joyful, and authoritative vocabulary of a victor. Your active, faithful preparation is the ultimate beautiful expression of your absolute trust in me. Before we take this final monumental step forward together into the light, I want to gently pause for just a moment and remind you of the incredible, deeply transformative spiritual journey we have just taken together. I want you to look intimately at how much you have miraculously grown. I remember the exact day you first fell to your trembling knees, entirely crushed beneath the suffocating, unbearable weight of your own desperate human efforts. You were completely exhausted, entirely broken, and deeply convinced that the best chapters of your story were permanently over. But you bravely chose to hand me your shattered, jagged pieces. You beautifully surrendered your frantic, exhausting need for control, even when letting go absolutely terrified you. You walked faithfully and courageously through the silent, dry wilderness, learning to actively trust my quiet voice when the heavens seemed completely, painfully still. You boldly stepped out of the heavy, dark shadows of your yesterday, actively choosing to finally forgive yourself and permanently severing the toxic, invisible ties to your past failures. And when the sudden, violent storms of life tried to ruthlessly push you back into those old, familiar patterns of panic, you learned exactly how to drop the heavy iron anchor of my eternal promises deep into the ocean floor, holding your ground with a breathtaking, unshakable spiritual resilience. You did not simply survive this arduous journey, my beautiful, resilient child. You allowed me to fundamentally and permanently heal your weary heart from the absolute inside out. You deliberately stopped aggressively watching the fragile, unpredictable human timeline and started intentionally, peacefully resting in my perfect, flawless character. You opened your spiritual eyes to the magnificent, everyday evidence of my unmerited favor, completely cultivating a deep, overwhelming sense of gratitude for the subtle, quiet blessings I faithfully poured out over you every single morning. You finally learned the profound, life-changing difference between a passive, helpless delay and an active, purposeful season of divine preparation. Every single tear you cried in the dark, every quiet moment of intense frustration, and every brave daily choice to trust me again was meticulously and lovingly used to completely remake the architecture of your soul. I am incredibly, fiercely proud of the strong, resilient, and deeply mature child who is standing confidently before me today. The fragile, frightened person who first entered the wilderness is absolutely not the same person who is victoriously walking out of it. Your internal capacity to hold the massive weight of my glory has been vastly, permanently expanded. Now I want you to feel the emotional atmosphere all around you, rising into a soaring, electric, and completely undeniable expectation. The very air you are breathing is completely thick with the absolute certainty of my overwhelming goodness. You are no longer cautiously approaching me as a fearful beggar quietly hoping for a few fallen leftover crumbs from the table. You are standing incredibly tall and confident as a fully restored heir, completely ready to inherit the magnificent abundant feast I have carefully prepared specifically for you. The old historical fear that used to entirely paralyze your mind has been completely and permanently dissolved by the overwhelming, unstoppable, brilliant light of my perfect love. You know exactly who you are, and infinitely more importantly, you know exactly whose you are. As you look directly at the beautiful door that is about to swing wide open, you are no longer desperate for the miracle to simply fix your broken emotions, because your emotions have already been completely, beautifully anchored in me. The massive impending external change will simply be the beautiful visible celebration of the profound invisible transformation that has already firmly taken root within your spirit. You are entirely perfectly ready. The deep roots of your faith have been driven so profoundly into the rich, unshakable, fertile soil of my grace that absolutely no future wind will ever be able to uproot you again. Your newly restored heart is fully awake, your hands are completely open, and your weary spirit is finally resting in a profound, impenetrable calm. You have fully, beautifully embraced the glorious eternal sequence of my kingdom, recognizing in your very bones that true lasting joy could never possibly be found in a rushed, premature deliverance. You allowed the deep, uncomfortable, but entirely necessary internal work to finish its beautiful, perfect course. You stand here right now on the brilliant, magnificent eve of restoration, completely whole, deeply loved, and entirely fortified by the unshakable quietness of heaven. You are finally the living, breathing, beautiful proof of the ultimate truth that internal rest must always, without exception, precede external perfection. You know, with absolute unwavering certainty, in the absolute deepest fibers of your entire being, that my peace comes before my miracle. Now in this profound, breathless silence of perfect peace, I want to gently reach out and completely sweep away the very last paper-thin barrier standing between your weary heart and mine. You have brought yourself faithfully to the threshold. You have bravely prepared your earthly house, and you have chosen to profoundly trust me in the dark. But today, right now, in this holy and magnificent moment, we are completely removing the final veil. I want to speak directly, unequivocally, and with absolute, undeniable heavenly authority to the deepest part of your spirit about the reality of your total, complete forgiveness. This is not a partial pardon or a fragile reprieve where I simply hold past mistakes over your head, silently waiting for you to fail again. This is absolute, permanent, and overwhelming redemption. I want you to physically feel what is happening in the eternal spiritual realm right this very second. For years, you have walked through your daily life with your shoulders hunched, your chest incredibly tight, constantly bracing for the next inevitable blow. You have carried a massive, crushing weight of shame strapped so tightly to your back that you almost completely forgot what it felt like to stand up perfectly straight. Feel that heavy, suffocating weight violently and permanently lifting off your weary chest right now. Take a deep, unrestricted breath. I am completely severing the thick, heavy iron chains of your past. They were forged from years of harsh words, painful betrayals, and the brutal judgments you relentlessly pronounced upon yourself. Listen closely in your spirit, and you will hear the glorious resounding sound of those ancient rusted locks breaking open the heavy metal, shattering into a million pieces upon the bright floor of heaven. You are entirely free. The internal prison door you have stared at for so agonizingly long has not just been unlocked. It has been completely, permanently torn off its hinges. As this breathtaking, monumental realization washes over your soul, I want you to allow the tears to finally freely fall. Do not hold them back, my precious child. These are absolutely not the bitter, agonizing tears of the dry wilderness, nor are they the exhausted, desperate tears of a fearful, broken heart. These are the magnificent, holy, cleansing tears of profound spiritual liberation. Let them flow abundantly and without apology. Every single drop that falls from your eyes today is powerfully washing away the deeply embedded stains of your lingering regrets. I am watching this massive, beautiful release of spiritual emotion, and I am absolutely not asking you to quickly dry your eyes or compose yourself. Weep with the overwhelming, breathless joy of a captive who has just been handed their unconditional, unexpected freedom. Let your tired soul finally exhale the heavy breath it has held for years. Every tear is a burden completely dissolving. You are completely safe here in my arms, totally exposed, completely known, and entirely fiercely loved, without a single solitary condition. I want you to look directly at the heavy ledger of your past, that massive mental list you have obsessively kept of every mistake you made, every time you lost your temper, every moment you foolishly gave into temptation, and every season you walked entirely away from my voice. You have studied that dark, depressing list until you perfectly memorized it, secretly believing it was the undeniable historical proof of your ultimate unworthiness. Right now, I am gently taking that heavy, agonizing ledger from your trembling hands. Watch as I wipe the slate entirely beautifully clean. The record of your wrongs has been completely erased by the overwhelming, unstoppable, brilliant flood of my grace. I am casting it directly into the consuming fire of my unconditional love. When I look at you, I absolutely do not see your failures. I do not see the broken, frightened versions of who you used to be, nor do I see the times you stumbled in the dark. I see only the brilliant, flawless, magnificent reflection of my own perfect love, shining right back at me. I want to permanently anchor your completely liberated heart in a specific, magnificent truth from my word. I have cast your sins as far as the east is from the west. I want you to think deeply about the sheer, unfathomable magnitude of that distance. If you travel north, you will eventually reach the absolute peak of the world and begin traveling south again. But if you travel east, you will travel east for all of eternity. East and west never, ever intersect. That is exactly how far I have permanently removed your transgressions from you. I want you to visualize standing on the edge of a massive, infinite ocean, watching the heavy stones of your past sink instantly into the darkest, most unreachable depths. They are completely unreachable. They are entirely unrecoverable. The enemy can no longer successfully point to your past, because your past has been swallowed whole by my infinite, relentless mercy. I will never, ever bring those past mistakes up to you again. The trial is permanently over. The verdict has been entirely settled by my grace, and you have been declared completely, eternally innocent. Step fully out of the shadows right now and directly into the blinding, brilliant light of this unshakable faith. This is the absolute peak of your internal transformation. You're no longer frantically striving to earn a freely given love, nor trying to meticulously pay off a debt that was already entirely canceled. You're simply standing in absolute breathless awe of a relentless love that aggressively pursued you through your darkest, most rebellious seasons. Think of the countless times you tried to push me away, entirely convinced you were simply too broken, too flawed, and too dirty to ever be fixed. Yet my love was infinitely more stubborn than your fear. I relentlessly tracked you down in the absolute deepest valleys of your shame, entirely refusing to let you settle for the tragic, empty identity of an outcast. Allow the magnificent, overwhelming reality of that fierce, unconditional love to completely saturate every single fiber of your being right now. It is a love that does not flinch at your brokenness, does not turn away from your mess, and does not ever grow tired of holding you. The brutal internal war is officially beautifully over. The exhausting battlefield of your weary mind has been permanently quieted. You are no longer fiercely fighting against your own history, and you are no longer desperately wrestling in the dark with the agonizing fear of sudden abandonment. You have experienced the ultimate defining spiritual breakthrough of your entire life. The heavy, suffocating armor you constantly wore to protect yourself from further disappointment is no longer necessary because I am your permanent, impenetrable, everlasting shield. Notice how completely wonderfully light you feel inside. Notice how the very air around you feels vibrant, deeply clean, and entirely full of breathtaking possibility. This is exactly what it means to be a completely new creation. You are breathing the pure, unfiltered oxygen of my heavenly grace, completely untethered from the heavy gravity of your past mistakes. You are entirely free to dream again, perfectly free to hope again, and completely free to step boldly forward, without ever constantly looking nervously over your shoulder again. Look closely at the incredible, magnificent triumph of this exact, holy moment. By completely surrendering your deepest, darkest fears, and allowing me to entirely rewrite your identity from the inside out, you have won the ultimate sweeping internal victory. The enemy's absolute greatest weapon against you was your own deeply rooted shame. But today, that ancient weapon has been completely, permanently shattered. You stand before me today, completely whole, entirely radiant, and profoundly, perfectly secure. This is the glorious, breathtaking climax of the incredible journey we have taken together. You have fully internalized the magnificent reality that my eternal love does not require your earthly perfection. It only requires your open surrender. Here in this blinding light of absolute redemption, the final internal victory is decisively won. You have perfectly fulfilled the core promise of our entire journey, demonstrating to your own soul the glorious, unshakable truth that my peace comes before my miracle. Now, as that magnificent, unshakable truth completely settles into the absolute deepest chambers of your newly restored heart, I want you to gently open your physical eyes and watch exactly what begins to unfold in the world around you. The heavy, invisible spiritual work is beautifully finished. The deep roots of your faith are entirely secure, and the heavens are finally ready to respond to the faithful, expectant posture of your soul. You have patiently endured the silence you have bravely faced, the agonizing shadows of your past, and you have deliberately chosen to trust my character, even when your circumstances screamed that you were entirely forgotten, because you allowed me to fundamentally rebuild your internal landscape. First, the environment is now perfectly prepared for the magnificent physical harvest I have promised you. I am stepping directly from the quiet sanctuary of your healed heart out into the loud, chaotic realities of your daily life. The long, agonizing season of waiting is permanently over. My beautiful child, you're about to feel the actual ground beneath your tired feet begin to miraculously shift. For so entirely long you have stood exhausted before massive, intimidating doors that seemed entirely made of impenetrable solid iron. You stared at situations that looked hopelessly permanent, entirely convinced that no amount of prayer or human effort could ever possibly move them. You knocked until your knuckles were bruised. You wept quietly on the cold floor. You pleaded for just a single tiny crack of light, and eventually, you resigned yourself to the heartbreaking idea that those heavy doors were permanently, forever locked. But I want you to watch closely right now. Listen to the undeniable, resounding sound of heaven, moving powerfully on your exact behalf. Those heavy, rusted locks are effortlessly turning. The massive, immovable doors that have stood stubbornly in your way for years are suddenly beautifully swinging wide open, completely on their own. You are no longer the frightened, exhausted version of yourself who used to stare at those locks in profound despair. You are watching them open with the quiet confidence of an heir who knows they absolutely belong in the magnificent room that is waiting on the other side. What was absolutely impossible for you to accomplish in 1,000 lifetimes of exhausting human effort, I am accomplishing for you in a single breathtaking second of divine intervention. I am making a clear, unmistakable way where there was absolutely no way. I am actively breathing vibrant, undeniable new life into the exact circumstances you thought were entirely dead. The desperate hopes you quietly eulogized and laid to rest in the cold, dry ground of the wilderness are suddenly rising up with miraculous, beautiful strength. Notice how the impossible situations in your daily life are divinely shifting perfectly in your favor. The crushing financial pressure that constantly threatened to pull you under is suddenly breaking apart, completely dissolving, as unexpected provision flows directly, effortlessly into your hands. The deeply fractured relationships you thought were completely beyond repair, the painful conversations you feared would always end in bitter, stony silence, are suddenly softening with a miraculous, entirely unexpected grace. I am actively moving the hearts of people you have never even met, meticulously orchestrating complex, intricate details entirely behind the scenes, to carefully deliver the exact breakthrough you have been weeping for. The deep, seemingly permanent barrenness of your previous seasons is being aggressively replaced by an overwhelming, breathtaking abundance. This is not just a return to normal. This is a spectacular elevation to a level of joy you never thought you would ever reach. Every single broken piece of your external world is rapidly, beautifully coming into perfect alignment with my magnificent will for your life. Feel the overwhelming, breathless awe washing completely over your spirit as you stand entirely surrounded by the brilliant, undeniable light of this unfolding miracle. You are physically witnessing the absolute, undeniable validation of every single tear you bravely sowed in the dark. Every moment you chose to faithfully endure the harsh, dry winds of the wilderness. Every morning you chose to simply get out of bed and trust me again has intimately, purposefully led you to this exact, magnificent destination. I want you to look closely at the vibrant, breathing reality of my eternal promises, finally coming to complete, glorious fruition. I gently told you that my timing is always perfect. But I know how incredibly deeply you struggled to believe that truth when the days were long and your human strength was entirely failing. Now, as you see the exquisite, flawless execution of my divine plan playing out right before your eyes, you can finally, completely understand why I asked you to patiently wait. I was meticulously setting a beautiful stage that your human eyes simply could not see. You learned to completely trust the author of your story long before you were allowed to read the final page of this chapter. And because you remained faithful in the heavy darkness, I am bringing you into a light so profound that it permanently blinds the regrets of your yesterday. This brings us to the most crucial, breathtaking revelation of your entire journey. Look intimately at exactly how you are receiving this massive external breakthrough today. In the past, if I had handed you this miracle while your heart was still fractured and deeply afraid, you would have desperately clung to the blessing itself, frantically making it the absolute center of your entire universe. You would have allowed the miracle to subtly become an idol, entirely replacing your desperate need for me with a terrifying, fragile dependency on the gift. You would have lived in constant, agonizing fear of losing what you had just gained. But because your weary heart was so thoroughly and beautifully healed first, because you learned to find your ultimate unshakable satisfaction entirely in my quiet presence, you can now hold this incredible blessing with completely open hands. You are absolutely not afraid of losing it, because your deep identity is no longer frantically wrapped up in what you possess, who currently accepts you, or how perfectly your earthly life is functioning. You are finally wonderfully free to simply enjoy the magnificent gift without being entirely enslaved by it. Stand here in this breathtaking, joyous amazement. My precious, victorious child. Look at the vibrant, beautiful colors of your completely restored life. Notice the overwhelming, profound gratitude rapidly rising up from the absolute bottom of your healed spirit. It is not a desperate, pleading gratitude, but the rich, overflowing, majestic thankfulness of someone who has personally witnessed the impossible become reality. I am completely overturning the dark tables of your past adversity. The enemy fiercely intended for your difficult circumstances to entirely crush your faith. But I have powerfully used those exact circumstances to completely rebuild the architecture of your soul. Now I am adding the beautiful, tangible, physical crown of external restoration to the deep, invisible spiritual victory you have already magnificently won. The phone call you stopped waiting for is ringing. The opportunity you thought was given to someone else is actively seeking you out. And the heavy, gray clouds of your long winter are permanently breaking apart to reveal a brilliant, entirely flawless sky. Every single detail of this profound breakthrough bears the undeniable, unmistakable signature of my loving hand. It is entirely too perfect, too intricately woven, and too miraculously timed for you to ever mistake it as a simple coincidence. You are completely surrounded by the breathtaking, undeniable evidence of my relentless, unconditional love. Reach out and physically touch the miracle, my child. Feel the absolute reality of it resting securely in your hands. Let the sheer, profound magnitude of my goodness completely overwhelm your senses, washing away any lingering tiny shadows of doubt that might have tried to quietly survive the dawn. As you look at the wide open doors, the healed relationships, the sudden provision, and the beautiful clear path stretching out miles ahead of you, I want you to remember the quietness of the wilderness. The external breakthrough is massive. It is entirely glorious, and it is beautifully yours to keep. But you must always remember that this spectacular physical victory is simply the beautiful natural aftermath of the profound spiritual truth you learned in the dark. You are standing in the brilliant, warm light of this answered prayer, fully recognizing that the miracle did not bring you your peace. Rather, your unshakable peace made room for the miracle. You are living, breathing, joyful proof that my peace comes before my miracle. As you hold this magnificent breakthrough in your completely open hands, I want you to look up from the gift and look directly into my eyes. We have crossed the vast, intimidating expanse of the wilderness together, and you have finally stepped fully into the brilliant, warming sunlight of your promised land. But I want you to understand something incredible about this exact moment. My precious child, this spectacular answered prayer, this incredible, tangible shift in your earthly circumstances is absolutely not the end of our story. It is merely the opening chapter of a much deeper, vastly more intimate walk together. For so long, your primary motivation for seeking my face was driven by a desperate, agonizing need for immediate rescue. You reached out for my hand because you were drowning in the dark waters of your circumstances, heavily burdened by the crushing weight of a storm you simply could not survive on your own. But today, the dark waters have completely, permanently receded. The violent winds have entirely ceased. The sky above you is a flawless, brilliant blue, and the ground beneath your feet is solid, secure, and beautifully blooming with new life. Now comes the most breathtaking, deeply rewarding phase of your entire spiritual journey. I am inviting you to fiercely hold my hand in the radiant, peaceful sunlight just as tightly as you held it in the terrifying midnight. You are stepping out of the exhausting defensive posture of mere survival, and you are walking confidently into the glorious, eternal freedom of a beloved child who knows they are perfectly safe. The profound grace you have discovered in the wilderness is not a temporary umbrella designed only to shield you from the rain. It is the permanent, unshakable, life-giving atmosphere in which you will live for the rest of your days. The enemy will undoubtedly try one last desperate tactic to steal your joy as you cross this threshold. He will attempt to whisper that this new season of abundance is fragile, secretly suggesting that you must constantly guard your behavior or frantically strive to maintain my favor, lest I suddenly change my mind and take the miracle back. But I want to completely, utterly shatter that lingering anxiety right now. You cannot possibly lose this freedom because you did not earn it with your own flawless performance. I gave it to you freely, fiercely, and forever. I am completely sealing your newly restored heart with an absolute, unwavering trust in my perfect timing for all the days and years that still lie ahead of you. You no longer have to live your precious life anxiously anticipating the next disaster, constantly waiting in the shadows for the other shoe to drop. When you wake up each morning, you will not instinctively brace yourself for disappointment. Instead, you will open your eyes with a soaring electric sense of joyful expectation. You will confidently look at the blank, unwritten pages of your future and know with absolute, unwavering certainty that the exact same loving Father who faithfully guided you through the deepest, darkest valleys is already standing in your tomorrows, perfectly preparing the way. If another storm eventually comes because this world is still fundamentally fractured and temporary, you will absolutely not panic. You will simply smile Drop the heavy, familiar iron anchor of my promises deep into the immovable ocean floor, and rest securely, entirely undisturbed by the howling wind. You have completely mastered the beautiful, profound art of trusting my heart when you cannot immediately see my hand. This profound, unshakable trust effortlessly gives birth to the purest, most magnificent form of daily worship. Pure worship is no longer just a familiar song you sing on a Sunday morning, nor is it a desperate pleading bargain made in the middle of a sleepless night. It is the quiet, beautiful, continuous rhythm of your completely transformed life. It is the way you freely and beautifully forgive those who hurt you, actively, extending the exact same boundless, unmerited grace that I have so generously poured over your own weary soul. It is the profound gentleness in your voice when you speak to the brokenhearted, because you intimately and deeply remember exactly what the dark, isolating wilderness felt like. It is the brilliant, unexplainable joy that radiates effortlessly from your smile, completely independent of your shifting external circumstances. Your entire existence has become a magnificent, living, breathing sanctuary of my unconditional love. Everywhere you walk, you carry the healing atmosphere of heaven with you, fundamentally changing the environments you enter, simply because my spirit rests so heavily and beautifully upon you. And as you move forward, I want you to actively notice the extraordinary beauty I have hidden in your entirely ordinary days. You do not need to constantly look for massive earth-shattering signs to know that I am with you. I am in the quiet laughter shared around your dinner table. I am in the deep, restful sleep that now comes so easily to you at night. I am in the gentle breeze that brushes against your face. And I am in the profound, settled peace that currently anchors your chest. You are completely awake to the subtle, magnificent daily miracles that previously went unnoticed when your eyes were blinded by fear. You have learned to sip the sweet water of my daily provision with a heart overflowing with genuine, profound gratitude. This unbroken communion between us is the ultimate prize. The restored relationships, the financial provision, the healed body, and the newly opened doors are all incredibly wonderful. But they are simply the beautiful wrapping paper surrounding the true gift, which is the unbreakable intimacy we now perfectly share. I want you to take a deep, cleansing breath right now, and finally, completely let go of any tiny remaining trace of worry that might still be hiding in the absolute deepest corners of your mind. Exhale the heavy, lingering exhaustion of your past mistakes. Exhale the suffocating expectations of a demanding world that constantly requires your perfection. Inhale the pure, vibrant, life-giving oxygen of my unconditional acceptance. You are entirely enough exactly as you are right in this very moment. You are entirely seen, perfectly understood, and deeply, fiercely cherished. As we walk forward hand in hand into this magnificent new season, you will continue to grow, to learn, and to beautifully expand in spiritual wisdom. But this ongoing growth will no longer be painfully driven by a frantic fear of falling behind or losing my love. It will be entirely driven by the joyful, endless discovery of my infinite, unfathomable goodness. You are standing completely victorious, firmly and permanently planted in the lush green pastures of your restored life, perfectly equipped for absolutely whatever comes next. I want to leave you with a profound, eternal blessing, a loving, heartfelt prayer, spoken directly over your beautiful, resilient spirit as you fully embrace this incredible new chapter of our journey together. Close your eyes, quiet your thoughts, and let these eternal words settle into your very bones like a warm, healing oil. May you always walk completely secure in the undeniable, magnificent truth that you are my deeply beloved child, perfectly chosen and entirely forgiven. May your weary mind be permanently guarded by a supernatural, impenetrable quietness that the loud, chaotic world can never, ever disturb. When you look behind you, may you see only the brilliant, sweeping triumph of my unmerited grace, completely covering the broken pieces of your past. When you look ahead of you, may you see an endless, completely open horizon, illuminated entirely by the bright light of my unwavering faithfulness. May your hands remain continually and beautifully open to receive the daily quiet favor I will relentlessly and joyfully pour out upon you. May your heart remain incredibly soft, deeply compassionate, and entirely overflowing with the uncontainable joy of your magnificent salvation. I seal your eternal spirit today with my perfect unconditional love, completely protecting you from every lingering shadow of fear and firmly anchoring you forever in the absolute light of my presence. Amen. You have truly arrived, my beautiful, faithful child. The long, arduous, stretching journey through the dry wilderness has successfully accomplished its perfect divine work within you. Your soul is magnificently quiet. Your eternal identity is entirely secure, and your daily earthly life is beautifully blooming with the abundant physical harvest you so faithfully waited for. You will never again confuse the external temporary blessings with the internal eternal source of your joy. You will live every single day, wrapped tightly and securely in my loving arms, completely confident, entirely unburdened, and perfectly, completely whole. Step joyfully and boldly forward into your magnificent future, perfectly and permanently anchored in the beautiful eternal reality that changed your life forever. My peace comes before my miracle,